You're watching Inside Utah Politics.
Time now to dig into some of the big stories of the week with the Inside Utah Politics panel. This week we have former state representative Holly Richardson and former state senator Scott Howell. So great to have both of you with us. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Okay, let's go back to Wednesday and break down Senator Hatch's final farewell speech. He called for civility, saying, you know, the Senate isn't doing what its intended purpose is. One of his most telling comments that I heard was he says compromise is now synonymous with surrender. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit. Let's start with the current environment in the U.S. Senate. Do you agree with what he was saying?
Yeah, I do agree with what he was saying, and I also think that the good senator might be part of the current problem.
We're going to get into that, but first, just talk about how we got to this point of nothing getting done and the stalemate.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is this really strident partisanship on both sides where it's voters at home who tell their representatives and their senators, don't compromise no matter what. If you compromise, it is considered, you know, evil, and you're crossing over, and it's a betrayal, and they will hold their people's feet to the fire, right? At least that's the belief. That's what's being used.
Is that really how most constituents feel, though, or are we really hearing from the extremes there? Scott?
Yeah, there's no doubt we're hearing from the extremes, and it's too bad that extremes in both parties, left and right, are so culpable to be part of this problem. You know, you talk about Orrin and what he said. I'll tell you another problem is 42 years in the Senate. That is a major problem.
You tried to do something about that.
Twice. Yeah. So I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I tried. And, you know, for me, I think Orrin has a very distinguished career, but I also think that he should have left probably 10 or 15 years ago.
Let's get back into something you already alluded to. When I posted stuff on social media, you know, a lot of the response was, he's being a hypocrite in saying that. And you alluded to that as well. What role do you think he personally played in the environment today?
So bless his heart, but I think it's ironic to call for civility when you have called victims of sexual assault liars, when you have called the other party, what did he call? What did he call?
We can't say that
TV.
word on
right?
TV.
Okay, so
dumb, you know what?
Yeah.
Right, that's exactly right.
Jack something, rabbit.
Yeah.
I think.
So I mean, that's part of it, right? You can't, on the one hand, be part of the really strident partisanship and name calling, and then on the other hand say we need more civility. I mean, I agree, we need more civility, but
Here's the perfect example, and you probably saw this. The reporter says to him, "Hey, Senator, what do you think about what's going on with President Trump?" He says, "The media will do anything to take this president down." And then the reporter says, "But it's not the media, it's the district attorney and the federal attorneys." And then he says, "I don't care. I don't care." And this is a guy who's supposed to be after the rule of law and following that. And then he says, "I don't care what happened."
Okay.
And his moral compass for what we are in Utah, the president does not fit anyone here.
Point made and point taken, but let's take a look at his career, because he has been known for being one that will cross party lines and get things done. I mean, as most recently, he's teamed up with Elizabeth Warren, Ted Kennedy, a big ally of his. So in his career, he has, you know, backed that up as far as we need to compromise.
he has, and I applaud that. And at the times where he's done that, I mean, I think this week he missed an opportunity to vote on Yemen, or to vote to stop our involvement, in Yemen. But yeah, he has. And to your point about the voters and not wanting compromise, I mean, I think we know Congress as a whole has a very low approval rating, but incumbents get reelected at like 94, 95%. So clearly, I mean, voters are sending the same people back.
Is there hope for coming back around and working together?
Of course there is. There's always hope, and that's why we have Ben McAdams going back there. I'll never forget.
You seem to disagree with that.
I'll never forget when I was sitting in my office and my assistant said, "You have a call from Senator Kennedy." Ted Kennedy called me, and he spent about a half hour on the phone with me. He said, "Scott, thank you for running. I just want you to know that Orrin thinks this relationship is greater than what it really is. And he said and it was
Between the two of
specifically,
them?
yes, and specifically it was on the children health medical chip. And he said, you know, he played a good game with me and I'm glad he did, but it was been overplayed. And after that, Ted called me again. But I think at least Orrin tried, and I want to give him that. I want to say that he had a good career, and thanks for his service. But again, I agree with Holly. He was part of this that caused this contention. He made a lot of that. And you know, you don't want someone who's leaving the Senate, you want to be able to say, good work. But boy, I'll tell you, I'm glad that he and Elaine can now go do what they want to do.
Do you find hope in Ben McAdams going to Congress?
Yeah, sure. I think he's great. I just find it amusing that in a discussion about Senator Hatch, you have to bring in Ben McAdams.
Okay, let's move on to another subject.
New Democrat.
Former Vice President Joe Biden in Utah on Thursday. Scott, let's start with you. What's this all about? Going around the country, touring, and getting out there.
Joe did my first fundraiser when I became the minority leader. He came out and held a huge one for us. We've been friends that close. Huge.
That will segue nicely here in a second.
Yeah, I was just going to say. Joe is the real deal. That's all I can say. He's the real deal, and if he's in, I'm all in.
Will he be in? Will he be the Democratic
I
nominee
would say
in 2020?
I talked with his close advisors yesterday, and he's doing this tour so he can kind of figure it out.
Okay.
And I would say that he's 90 plus.
As a Republican and one that doesn't stand behind the current president, is that trouble for the Republican Party in 2020 if Joe Biden is in and gets the nomination?
No, I don't
Why?
think it is. I think, I mean, just like from the Republican side, I think the Democrats are ready for new blood, and I don't think it's going to be Joe Biden. I don't think it's going to be Hillary Clinton. They're going to be able to carry that standard and have any hope of unseating the current president. I've heard him speak. He's a really interesting speaker. He's funny, right? He can personalize his family stories, but I don't think he's going to be the one.
If, and I understand this is a big if he were to get the Democratic nomination, President Trump get the Republican nomination, who would win?
I still think it's Trump. I mean, he just seems
depends,
to not lose very much support.
But it depends if Joe learned from Hillary's mistakes.
True.
You got to go to the Rust Belt. You cannot let those voters go, and that's what he's doing right now. He's going out and getting to them. And you know, it's interesting to hear Holly say that, because I've heard, oh, he's too old, or he's this or that. But I'm telling you right now, if he was sitting here, he's the real deal.
Yeah,
he
I don't
really
disagree
won't
with
make
that.
things to happen. And I think he would be good. He'd be a healing thing that would come forward for our country.
Okay, let's get on to one other topic real quick. We have about a minute and a half left, but let's take a look at the inland port. Controversial issue here in Salt Lake City. The board voting to approve an interim director. The idea behind this is to get things going, speed things up. Is that where we need to be heading, speeding things up?
Well, I think I agree with columnist Michelle Quist, who said, you know, let's take it a little bit slow and be more methodical about it. It was passed the last night of the session, the bill. And I think if I understand correctly, the interim director is being offered $100,000 for 6 months.
Plus a bonus.
I'll apply for that job.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
Actually, I'm not at all qualified, so I shouldn't even say that. Yeah.
Look, I mean, I think there's other ways that the legislature could go about this in a better way.
Okay, Scott, your thoughts?
No, I completely agree with Holly. It's something that's so big and so powerful that we need to take our time. But our current mayor did not help the situation with the legislature and with the governor, and I think that they're playing some stupid games there.
What potential does it have, though? Because the governor says he goes to D.C., and people all over the world are talking about that as a huge economic opportunity for this area.
As long as it doesn't hurt our environment. It is a fabulous opportunity. I was just on the plane with a guy who's got one in Kansas. He said the economic value that it brings in is millions and millions of dollars. But if we hurt our environment, it's not worth it.
Okay, about 15 seconds left. You'll have the final word.
Let's just do it right.
Okay.
She did that in 3, so that's good.
Fast is not right, is what you say.
Just to make sure we do it right by taking enough time to look at all of the issues.
Great conversation. Thanks so much. Appreciate having you.
Thank you for having us. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, and to you as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us. We will be right back with more Inside Utah Politics right after the break.